What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the StormCast, the number one StormCast in the world. Thank you for tuning in with me today. Hope your day is going well. Today is Friday, December 29th, and it's a crispy 50 degrees outside. I hope everyone has a great week and holiday season. As we enter the new year, I just want to say, of course, happy holidays and a happy new year to you and everyone you love. Thank you to the new subs. We are almost at 2K subscribers on YouTube. So that's a big deal. We've been trying to reach 2K for a while now, and we're almost there. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button to get notified every time I post and join the Storm Squad. We got some New Year's plans in the works. We definitely want to continue to get physically, mentally, spiritually stronger as we enter 2024. 2023 offered a lot of good things, but 2024 will be a lot better as it will offer more greatness and blessings. Uh, we're trying out the new angles. Comment down below how the angles are. Chat, let me know how the angles look. And we're going to continue to mess around with the audio and the video to bring you guys new angles and new ways to enjoy the pod and the live streams. Let me know how the audio sounds. Episode 2 audio wasn't that well, but hopefully this one is going to be a lot better. Go and check that one out if you haven't already. That episode is now out on Spotify and everywhere else you get your pods. Listen to your pods, I should say. Guys, currently in the process of trying to move and be independent in my life and trying to set up my life as well as I can to be independent for myself and do more for myself. So that's what I'm currently in the process of doing. I've been checking out some new AI. I've been using some different AI, which has been cool. We're currently live on Facebook and YouTube, by the way. So go into the Facebook page, Stormy and Friends, and tune in there, as well as the YouTube channel, Stormy and Friends. But we've been playing around. I've been seeing a lot of AI out there, so we've just been messing around with a lot of different websites to help us push out some better content, clips, and all that type of stuff that's going to help out the audio and help us push out better clips and audio for everyone. I want to get into some reactions. I've been seeing some interesting stuff, research as well that I've been doing. I've been seeing some good things that are beneficial not only for those that are with disability, but anybody could be using this type of these techniques that I'm about to share with you. So the first one is from National Library of Medicine, the National Library of Medicine, the National Center for Biotechnology. This was posted March 24th of 2015, and it's demonstrating the effects of earthing on inflammation, the immune response, wound healing, and prevention and treatment of chronic inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. So I found this article very interesting. The abstract talks about how multidisciplinary research has revealed the electrical conductivity contact of the human body with the surface of the earth. Grounding or earthing produces intriguing effects on physiology and health. Such effects relate to inflammation, immune responses, wound healing, and prevention and treatment of chronic inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. The purpose of this report is twofold: to inform researchers about what appears to be the new perspective to the study of inflammation, and to alert researchers that the length of time and degree resistance of grounding of experimental animals is an important but usually overlooked factor that can influence outcomes of studies of inflammation, wound healing, and tumorigenesis. Specifically, grounding and uh, organism produces measurable differences in the concentrations of white blood cells, cytokines, and other molecules involved in the inflammatory response. We present several hypotheses to explain observed effects based on current research results and our understanding of the electronic aspects of cell and tissue physiology, cell biology, biophysics, and biochemistry. So let's just read the introduction. That's a lot of scientifical, that's real detailed. But it's basically saying that grounding or earthing refers to direct skin contact with the surface of the earth, such as with bare feet or hands, or with various ground systems. Subjective reports that walking barefoot on the earth enhances health and provides feelings of well-being that can be found in the literature, and practices of diverse cultures from around the world. For a variety of reasons, many individuals are reluctant to walk outside barefoot these days, unless they are on holiday or at the beach, something like that. Experience and measurements show that sustained contact with the earth yields sustained health benefits. Various grounding systems are available that enable frequent contact with the earth, such as while sleeping, sitting at the computer, or walking outdoors. These are simple conductive systems in the form of sheets, mats, wrist or ankle bands, adhesive patches that can be used inside the home or office, and footwear. These applications are connected to the earth via a cord inserted into a grounded wall or outlet, or attached to a ground rod placed in the soil outside below a window. So instead of walking barefoot, you can, I mean, if you're not allowed to do that or able to do that, I should say, you could always use different forms connected to the like a connection that you have at your house, and it can mimic the effects of earthing, or being outside and walking barefoot. Um, so that's cool for people that are disabled or people that work at offices all day. They can basically mimic being outside and walking barefoot. For footwear applications, a conductive plug is positioned in the shoe sole at the ball of the foot under the metatarsals at the acupuncture point known as kidney 1. From a practical standpoint, these methods offer a convenient and routine, user-friendly approach to grounding or earthing. They can also be used in clinical situations, as will be described in the section entitled Summary of Findings to Date. So that's the introduction to grounding, but I just kind of want to skip past forward. As you see in this article, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that viewer discretion is advised, by the way. This is a little bit graphic, that grounding can prevent inflammation and healing, or induce healing. As you see, this person's foot is very red and swollen. And then in figure B, healing. And then in figure C, it's completely healed. And this is due to grounding, which reduces inflammation and heals. So we're gonna go down, and these figures, this guy is also, it looks like he's got some e-stim pads around his injury site, some blood, but it looks like it's healing. He's got it stitched up. And then from figure A to figure C, you can tell that it's healed and recovered. So this is definitely going to be beneficial to people with wounds, or bed sores, such as quadriplegics and other people that are injured and disabled and can't really shift much. This grounding is a great way to heal, promote wound healing. Grounding appears to also improve sleep, normalize the day-night rhythm, cortisol rhythm, the day-night cortisol rhythm, which reduces pain and reduces stress, shifting the autonomic nervous system from a sympathetic toward a parasympathetic activation, increasing your heart rate variability and speeding wound healing and reducing blood viscosity. The summary reads, so it has effects on on your sleep cycle, which means like basically if you're going outside and grounding for a couple hours a day, you're going to be able to get better better night's sleep and also regulate your cortisol, your stress levels. The effects, the results on sleep are saying that grounding during sleep yields quantifiable changes in diurnal and circadian cortisol secretion levels that in turn produce changes in sleep, pain, and stress, anxiety, depression, and irritability, as measured by subjective reporting. So being outside, obviously, we all know that sunlight can affect you beneficially. You know, when you go outside, you feel a lot better. But this is also saying that it's going to regulate your circadian rhythm and pretty much just make you feel better with your cortisol levels, reducing stress. So these results are pretty amazing. The effects on pain and the immune response are amazing as well. There's been some studies conducted on pilots. We're gonna skip past all these details and studies because it gets quite monotonous and detailed here. But overall, grounding can have so many benefits for you, which I'm interested in being quadriplegic, because if there's any way to improve my recovery, I definitely want to access all available options, right? So we're going to continue to pass this. This was a pretty long study done in 2015, but pretty much overall, the study pretty much states that accumulating experiences on earthing and grounding point to the emergence of a simple, natural, and accessible health strategy against chronic inflammation, warranting the serious attention of clinicians and researchers. The living matrix or ground regulation or tissue tensegrity matrix system, the very fabric of the body, appears to serve as one of our primary antioxidant defense systems. As this report explains, it is a system requiring occasional charging by conductive contact with the Earth's surface, the battery for all planetary life, to be optimally effective. So, guys, if you're not grounding, you should probably start trying to get a couple, 15 to 20 minutes in a day. I know when I ground, I always feel a lot less pain after, and I always feel improvement in my mood. So I've been implementing that in my day-to-day. Whenever I can, obviously, the weather has to be right and you need to find a nice spot to do it. But I've been definitely trying to, whenever I can, go outside, take my shoes off, and sit in the sun, have my feet connected to the grass, and get in some exercise as well that way. So we're gonna now look at the actual benefits and the role of grounding. We're gonna watch a video here. If I can find it. There she is. And she's also going to be talking about the benefits of grounding. So let's just watch this video right now.
Hi, Dr. Ariane from Movement Paradigm. Grounding, otherwise known as earthing,
Hold on. Can you guys actually hear this? Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear. I'm going to remove it and re-edit to make sure I click the right. I do it all live, folks, and all by myself. We do it live, folks. All right, present. Let's reshare that. Make sure. Okay, the audio was shared. So, okay, guys, you never can be too sure. So we're gonna reshare it. And I like the way she describes it. So let's listen in. Right now.
Hi, Dr. Ariane from Movement Paradigm. Grounding, otherwise known as earthing, is one of the most powerful and simplest things you can do to improve your health. As Aristotle once said, in nature, there is something marvelous. This conductive contact of the human body with the surface of the earth can have intriguing benefits on our physiology. So we're going to talk about what this simple and powerful technique is, what benefits you have, and of course, how you can do it.
I like her.
Okay, so what is grounding? So essentially it is the direct contact of the skin on the hands or our bare feet on the surface of the earth, or it can be done via a grounding system, which we'll talk about later. The amazing thing about grounding is that people all over the world...
Let me know in the chat if you've already been grounding or if you do this already. And no, I'm not talking about just going to the beach. I mean, like, you know, purposefully doing this for health benefits. Let me know in the chat.
In diverse cultures have talked about the benefits and how to improve their health and well-being from being barefoot on the earth for thousands and thousands of years. So although this may seem new to some, it is something that is really prevalent in other cultures. Let's get into the evidence-based benefits of the grounding. Number one is reducing inflammation. We know that 90% of all of our chronic health conditions are linked to excessive or persistent inflammation. Grounding is one of the simplest ways to address that. Number two is it decreases pain. Number three is it can decrease our stress response. It can help shift us from that sympathetic state to that parasympathetic state in our autonomic nervous system. Number four is it can increase our heart rate variability.
Sorry about that.
The higher our heart rate variability is, which is the interbeat between the heartbeats, is really a measure of our autonomic nervous system function. This can really show that we have better recovery, we have better emotional resilience, and overall well-being. Number five, it can improve our sleep. So especially as it relates to using grounding systems at night, it has been shown to increase sleep. Number six is it can improve our day to night cortisol rhythm. So cortisol is one of our key stress hormones, once again bringing us back into that parasympathetic state. Number seven is wound healing. This can be a great thing to include in an integrative approach to healing. Number eight is it reduces blood viscosity. So this can be one of the best things you can do for reducing your cardiovascular risk. So how can you include grounding in your life? All right, the easiest way is to just get outside barefoot. So you could spend as little as 10 minutes to see some benefits, up to 30 minutes or even an hour. And all you have to do is you could stand, you could sit, you could even sit in a chair and place your feet on the ground. You can put your hands in the grass, but really just this consistent time outdoors can be really the simplest way to include this. If that's not realistic for you, that's okay. You can use a grounding system. So that can come in the form of a sheet, of a mat. There's patches, there's wristbands, ankle bands, things that go on your feet, and essentially connect to a grounded outlet. By connecting to this grounded outlet, you're essentially connecting to Mother Earth. So why does this work? One of the theories is that our skin contact with the earth allows electrons to spread into the skin as well as the body, which thereby can impact immune markers. So that's where it's a huge, really, really huge factor in our overall immune response, thereby inflammation and pain and so on. So as I mentioned, grounding has been around forever. And this is just something that now we're putting more research behind to be able to see all of these potential health benefits with something so simple. Being barefoot is a way of life. And the more that you can stimulate the small nerves in the bottom of your feet, the more that you can connect to the earth's surface, the more that you can really bring your body back into a state of balance, reducing inflammation, driving more of a parasympathetic nervous system response, you are going to feel a lot better and hopefully live your best life. As always, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this was helpful to you.
All right. So shout out to the movement paradigm. Shout out to her. I like the way she explained it in that video. As you see, there's a lot of different ways you can do grounding or earthing, and the benefits are vast. As she talked about, and we talked about earlier, reducing inflammation. We all know that 90% of all chronic health conditions are linked to excessive or persistent inflammation. Grounding is one of the simplest ways to address that, just one way. And then it also decreases pain, as she talked about, decreases stress response. It can help us shift from the sympathetic state to our parasympathetic state in our autonomic nervous system. It increases our heart variability. The higher our heart rate variability is, the inner beat between the heartbeats, the better the function of our autonomic nervous system. This can be associated with better recovery, better emotional resilience, and overall well-being, improving sleep, improving cortisol rhythm. Cortisol is one of our key stress hormones. Improving wound healing. Grounding can be a great thing to include an integrative approach to healing. Reducing blood viscosity, which is one of the best things you can do for reducing cardiovascular risk. So the benefits of grounding are amazing, as we just talked about. And there's some other articles here that I now want to bring up. And this has to do with electrical stimulation for spinal cord injury patients, and pretty much how it works. So let's bring this article up here. If you're tuned into the YouTube, go ahead and give me a chat, W in the chat. If you're listening on the audio version, give me a 5-star rating and let me know how the quality is of this podcast. So this was a medical review by Elizabeth Dinslow, which she's a occupational therapist, and this was written by Flint Rehab. This was in September of 2021. Following a spinal cord injury, individuals may struggle with severe weakness or pain that impacts their ability to participate in rehab. For an extra boost, therapists may recommend electrical stimulation to help stimulate movement, reduce pain, and stabilize autonomic functions below the level of injury. So how electrical stimulation works is important to understand how a spinal cord injury can affect your movements. When you have a spinal cord injury, the communication pathways that relay signals between the brain and the body are disrupted. After a spinal cord injury, signals may be unable to travel past damaged areas of the spinal cord. This may result in the loss of motor control and or sensation in areas below the level of injury. While the nerves below the level of injury are not damaged, they cannot send or receive signals to or from the brain and consequently become inactive. Electrical stimulation can help individuals with spinal cord injury recover motor control by stimulating undamaged nerves below the level of injury with electrical currents. The electrical currents mimic brain signals to reactivate the nerves, encourage the reorganization of pathways between the brain and body to promote communication and produce muscle contractions. To maximize the effects of electrical stimulation, you need to optimize the effects of electrical stimulation. Individuals must focus on promoting the central nervous system's ability to reorganize its neural circuitry, also known as neuroplasticity. Only way to relearn how to move is to physically train the body to recognize movement patterns. The more an individual practices a movement, the better the spinal cord gets at recognizing the demand for the function. For that reason, spinal cord or electrical stimulation, I should say, is the most effective when used in combination with intensive physical training. Individuals should use electrical stimulation to enhance neuronal activity below the level of injury, but focus on activating neuroplasticity in the spinal cord through highly repetitive, task-specific practice to promote long-term results. Even if you are unable to actively perform the motions that are being stimulated, it is important to continue moving the body passively with the help of a therapist or trained caregiver as needed to promote optimal recovery. Additionally, visualizing yourself completing the motions being stimulated and concentrating on trying to complete the movement during electrical sessions can enhance neuroplasticity and encourage recovery. As we talked about before, neuroplasticity, basically the brain rewiring. Now that you understand how to optimize the effects of electrical stimulation, the following section will discuss several techniques that utilize electrical stimulation to recover movement after spinal cord injury. So these are the different types of electrical stimulation for spinal cord injury recovery. One, you got FES or functional electrical stimulation. FES is a non-invasive treatment option that may be able to help individuals with spinal cord injury produce functional movements. This type of electrical stimulation involves placing electrodes on the skin over weakened muscles. Therapists control the strength and frequency of electrical emissions using a device. I have my own electrical stimulation machine, and they're pretty cheap. You can get one on Amazon for as low as $20, $30, and they're pretty easy to use. But you may need someone to connect it for you over the skin, but it's fairly easy to use. Rather than stimulating the spinal cord, the electrical emissions stimulate the peripheral nerves to produce muscle contractions. And it feels really good too. Whenever I do it, I usually put it over my area that I'm going to be working out, and I'll simultaneously work out as well as have the FES turned on. Or you can put it on area that is in pain. What I like to do is put it around or below and above the area that is affected or in pain and turn it on that way. And it usually provides a lot of pain relief. It usually provides a lot of good pain relief at that. During FES, the patient must perform, you don't have to, but the patient should perform a functional task, such as lifting an object from a table or bringing a cup to his mouth. By transitioning muscle contractions into functional movements, FES can help individuals optimize their independence after spinal cord injury. There are various electrical stimulation devices that can be used for functional electrical stimulation or FES, depending on the body parts affected. Some are simple, just little small devices and a few electrode pads. However, there are some that are more involved and can stimulate multiple muscle groups at once. So these include BioNest devices. There are two main BioNest products, one of which stimulates the muscles affected in those with foot drop or thigh weakness, and another that stimulates the muscles required to grasp and release objects. These devices are able to be used during therapy sessions and are also available for home use to continue promoting increased functional use of affected extremities. And then you have exoskeletons. These are wearable devices that can provide electrical stimulation to the lower body and to stimulate the muscles involved in walking. Exoskeletons use FES are gaining popularity. Using FES, sorry, are gaining popularity, but are still actively being researched. So these are very expensive products, these exoskeletons, and are not very widely used for people with spinal cord injury. A lot of times they're very, like I said, expensive and hard to get access to unless you go to a facility that provides exoskeletons, or I guess you could order one, but they're very, very expensive right now, and they're still being researched. So you have that. You have transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, or TENS units. Uh, Transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation is a non-invasive form of electrical stimulation that involves placing electrodes on the surface of the skin to sensory nerves. This type of electrical stimulation focuses on relieving pain after spinal cord injury, not activating movement. While TENS won't alleviate the source of pain, it may alter the way your brain perceives it. It accomplishes this by blocking pain signals and stimulating the production of endorphins. The following three applications of electrical stimulation are promising procedures that are currently being researched as potential treatments for spinal cord injury. Then you have epidural electrical stimulation, which is an invasive type of electrical stimulation that may significantly improve mobility after spinal cord injury. It involves implanting a stimulator and a 16 electrode array directly onto the spinal column. Compared to non-invasive forms of electrical stimulation, epidural stimulation can activate the nerves at lower stimulation currents. Clinical trials have demonstrated that even individuals with very severe or complete spinal cord injuries may be able to recover over ground walking by utilizing epidural stimulation. It's also suggested that epidural stimulation can help stabilize blood pressure levels and improve bowel and bladder control. So this is going to be a device placed over the spinal cord. And it's interesting that it'll help stabilize blood pressure levels, because a lot of people with spinal cord injury, they deal with blood pressure problems and often have to take medicines because they're always sitting down or laying down, and so their blood pressure is usually very low. And this will also help improve bowel and bladder control, which we all know that people with spinal cord injuries also struggle with loss of that type of control. And then you have intraspinal microstimulation, or ISMS, which is a type of electrical stimulation that involves implanting thin, flexible electrode wires into the lumbar region of the spinal cord. This allows for very precise muscle activation. The hair-like wires are placed in the gray matter of the spinal cord, which sends electric currents directly to the motoneural pools responsible for controlling movement. Because of the increased precision in stimulating the spinal circuits, intraspinal microstimulation is hypothesized to result in more stable functional outcomes. Then you have BCI, or brain-computer interface, which is a highly talked about topic these days. Which these techniques, this will be addressing, it's a procedure that has many different names, including brain-machine interface, or brain-controlled interface, neural control interface, and mind-machine interface. However, they all refer to the same process. Brain-computer interface involves placing electrodes near the brain, the primary motor cortex of the brain, to monitor the intention to move. The electrodes emit electrical currents to restore functional activity in paralyzed limbs. Just by thinking about walking, individuals may be able to control the electrical stimulation that enables their legs to move. Although this technique is still in its early stages of research and development, BCI appears to be a promising treatment for spinal cord injury patients with lower body paralysis. And we're seeing that in things like Neuralink from Elon Musk's company. They're creating a brain-computer interface that's currently being tested, and I have been in conversation with them and had some interviews with them about Neuralink and what it could do for me. But I'm still currently waiting on them to hit me back with details on their trials. But this video right here is going to show you how an individual with lower limb paralysis achieves overground walking during a brain-controlled interface trial. If it pops up here. So the feasibility of brain-computer interface for paraplegia. This video shows a person with paraplegia due to a spinal cord injury controlling the walking and standing of an avatar within a virtual reality environment. By thinking about walking, he can walk the avatar to each cone. By thinking about relaxing, he can stop at each of the 10 cones. So there's no sound with this one. It's 8 minutes long. But as you see, this guy right here is just using his brain, nothing else, to control a computer simulation game. And in the game, I guess he's walking around here and going to, open world scenario, going to go do things. But just wanted to check on that. That's an interesting video. We're gonna move on though. So there are some risks associated with electrical stimulation for people with spinal cord injury. Depending on the type of electrical stimulation you utilize, you may be susceptible to different types of risks. For example, non-invasive methods of electrical stimulation are not accompanied by the risks associated with surgery. However, they generally require higher stimulation currents, which can increase the risk of tissue damage, especially in those with impaired sensation. So for people with spinal cord injury, you can't feel a lot of times where you're being touched. And so if you have pads on an area that you can't feel and have no sensation, then you may be liable to overdoing it and creating more problems for yourself. Weaknesses and risks associated with electrical stimulation also include high costs. A lot of these devices are expensive, but you can find some cheap ones. They may not be the most high tech or advanced, but you really don't need a super expensive advanced one. You can just get a little cheap one, and it does pretty much the same thing as all the expensive ones. So there are some device complications. Lead migration and breakage appear to be the most common device related issues. Invasiveness, patients should assume the general risks involved with any surgical procedure like infections or bleeding. Discomfort from the stimulator itself or the electric currents it emits. Lack of guarantees, although promising, the mechanisms behind electrical stimulation have yet to be fully understood. Not everyone will experience the same results. So now that you're pretty much familiar with the disadvantages of electrical stimulation, we can go back on to some of the benefits for people, or benefits of electrical stimulation for people with spinal cord injury. Electrical stimulation may be able to provide the extra boost necessary to help individuals recover movement after spinal cord injury. Potential benefits of electrical stimulation for spinal cord injury include reduced pain, improved bowel and bladder control, stabilized blood pressure, enhanced movement patterns, reversibility. Implants can be removed and treatments can be stopped at any time. Availability of non-invasive options. You have FES and TENS. They're very valuable little machines out there. And then you have improved self-esteem and confidence, mainly due to the sensation you may regain or movement you'll regain back after using electrical stimulation. Every spinal cord injury is unique, of course, and electrical stimulation may not be ideal for everyone with spinal cord injury. Often, electrical stimulation is not ideal for individuals with pressure sores, epilepsy, cardiovascular problems, or severe autonomic dysreflexia after spinal cord injury. If you're interested in trying electrical stimulation, you can talk to a doctor or therapist to determine if it's ideal for you. So those are just some of the key points of electrical stimulation. It pretty much, in conclusion, involves the use of electrical currents to relieve pain or stimulate movement below the level of injury. While these electric currents can successfully enhance movement patterns, it is essential to engage in an intensive rehabilitation program to retrain the brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves, and muscles to work in sync again, which is that neuroplasticity that you can regain if using electrical stimulation while working out. So we got some videos I want to react to. This one is about epidural stimulation after spinal cord injury, the restoration of motor and autonomic function. So I will get you guys this videos here. And this is from SCI. This was about three years ago now, but it's a pretty good video. So let's go ahead and react to it. Epidural stimulation after spinal cord injury.
Epidural stimulation is a procedure where electrode will be implanted above spinal cord, typically below the level of injury at the present time, in order to activate the areas which are responsible for motor control of lower extremities. Just recently, it was discovered that by epidural stimulation, we also can excite circuits within the spinal cord, which is responsible for motor control and also improvement in autonomic dysfunctions that people with spinal cord injury commonly experiencing. That include improvement in the bladder, bowel functions, improvement in the management of arterial blood pressure dysfunctions, and amazingly also improvement in sexual function of individuals who underwent these procedures. It's a very crucial question to understand how epidural stimulation works. In a simple way, electrical stimuli will activate fibers and neurons within the spinal cord, and therefore then these structures produce stimuli sending to periphery, muscles, blood vessels, which eventually result to the stimuli applied to the spinal cord. Epidural stimulation produces more physiological response. It activates motor neurons within the spinal cord, which will send signal to the muscle, and muscle will contract. Functional electrical stimulation, electrode positions directly in the muscle or above the muscle, and functional electrical stimulation produces direct activation of the muscle. In order to improve.
So you guys see she had those pads on her hands and it was helping her move her hands. So that's that neuroplasticity. You can get back that function.
Motor function after the long period of paralysis, patient should expect that with epidural stimulation, even there is a restoration of voluntary movement, but person have to go back to retrain his lower limbs to ambulate properly, to coordinate movements again, And that's why this is what expected. We do know from the previous history of implantation of epidural stimulation for the pain management, it's a safe procedure.
In 2014, Geoff Jessup sustained a complete spinal cord injury and lost the use of his legs. In 2018, Geoff participated in a clinical trial and had an epidural
I
stimulator
think the
surgically
surgery
implanted.
itself is about an hour and a half tops. And then, they spend a little bit of time looking at the placement and all that. So I think you're in for about just over 3+ hours. Yeah, it was a little bit of the unknown, but knowing that it was cutting edge and an opportunity to get some sort of movement back, it was borderline emotional. I mean, you haven't seen those movements for, in my case, 4 years. And all of a sudden now you're seeing that. And again, your mind starts to go, wow, how far can this go, right? So yeah, it was great.
I know that majority of my patients, and this is known from other studies, what is number one priority for recovery? It's not actually ambulation. It's a recovery of autonomic dysfunctions.
Bladder was really good improvement right at the beginning. It's kind of tapered off a little bit. Bowel was much better improved off the beginning and stayed consistent all the way through. If you've got to spend an hour and a half in the bathroom in the morning, well, you got to back your day up just that much more. So if now you can do that in 20 minutes, well, it's another hour in bed.
We all know how frustrating it can be sitting and waiting to have to use the restroom once you've placed it in a suppository or, however you do your bowel program. If you have a spinal cord injury, how time consuming it can be. But, getting that function back would be a life changer. As you see, this guy, Geoff, here gets that restoration of that autonomic function, and it's, even more important to him than walking.
So that's probably the hidden benefit to it, right?
Although epidural stimulation showed very interesting effects on motor function, autonomic functions after spinal cord injury, we have to be cautious. We are only at the beginning of understanding what this therapy can result. We still have to investigate what is the long-term effects of this therapy as well.
I think nobody wants to be told that, hey, you have this or this has happened to you and there's no advancement. So just get used to where you are. And people want to think that there's an opportunity, there's some hope, and have realistic expectations, but never give up on hope.
All right. So that was from Spinal Cord Injury Research Evidence, or SCI project, explaining the epidural stimulator after spinal cord injury and how it can restore motor and autonomic function. So that's pretty awesome to see that guy get back some function back and talk about his journey with that, with his epidural stimulator. We're also gonna watch another video from spinal cord injury, from the SCI Spinal Cord Injury Research Evidence Group project. We're gonna see how functional electrical stimulation after spinal cord injury improves motor function and more. Functional electrical stimulation after spinal cord injury.
What is
improves
FES?
motor function
FES
and
stands
beyond.
for Functional Electrical Stimulation. FES can help functionally with strengthening muscles that are weak.
So she's got a little FES bike there has the pads connected to her legs, and it's moving it in a walking motion. And then she's watching a screen, which she can use to adjust. I actually have this exact machine, and it was a pretty expensive machine, but it was covered by insurance, thank God. But this machine right here is pretty good for anybody that's needing to get in stimulation and to also do a motor. So to combine a motor movement and a functional movement, it would help you get that neuroplasticity back in your legs and to regain that walking pattern.
Clinician will help select which muscle depending on the goal that the client has. And the treatment entails low energy electrical current that's applied to a peripheral nerve to help a weak muscle contract. We could use it in isolation just to help with strengthening a muscle. It will help also reduce atrophy. It can help drive positive neuroplasticity or positive change in the nervous system of the person. Or we could use it to enhance a movement pattern, so such as reaching or grasping for relearning. You could also use it to help a person cycling. So that's a great device for fitness. And the treatment can be individualized. So the clinician will help select what muscles and what device is best. So these are different examples of how FES can be applied.
FES bike has benefited just my general muscle tone. I don't have use of my lower limbs. I have sensation but no movement. So the muscles are not getting used on a daily basis. Once the stimulations come on from the electrodes, then it feels kind of like a tingly, buzzy sensation as it progresses through the bike motion.
FES can be used to prevent secondary complications after SCI, so it can be useful to optimize respiratory health and bladder.
FES is usually applied via surface electrodes on the limbs. FES can also be surgically implanted to enhance respiratory, bladder, or limb function.
Control. It's also great for cardiovascular benefits, such as the FES cycling has demonstrated that. FES is not for everyone. So in the case, if a person has an active DVT, if a person is pregnant, if you have a pacemaker or any medically implanted device, you don't want to use FES. The benefits of FES last for as long as you use FES. So if you're using it for fitness, you have to keep a regular program. And then if somebody has an incomplete spinal cord injury, the clinician will look at weaning you from FES, and as your strength improves, then you may not need it anymore.
The arm FES has been helpful in developing different muscle groups that were slowly developing at the time. They started off with very little movement, and now I can use them a bit more, and they're starting to be a little more functional.
So the research says that FES is an effective treatment for strengthening muscles and also helping relearn movements.
I think the FES definitely has potential. I thought it was a good part of my therapy that I've been using it, and I think it should be used by other people.
So that was a good video, as you see, from the Spinal Cord Injury Research Evidence Group Project. Shout out to them. They, as you see, they're working with her using the FES bike and the electrode pads in parts of her body that the muscles are not contracting well. So like someone like me with a C4 or 5 level spinal cord injury.
I'm looking in 3 hours.
All right.
Oh, come.
The electrodes are placed in areas of your body that you can't use. So I like to use it in my triceps if I'm lifting to get that activation, or if I'm like doing core work, I like to put it on my abs just to get a little bit extra contractions, and it helps you regain that function back, that neuroplasticity. So got another article, but this one is on the role of electrical stimulation for rehab and generation after spinal cord injury. So let's react to this article. Let's read it. Actually, let's see what it's talking about. This is from the Journal of Orthopedics and Traumatology, describing the role of electrical stimulation for rehab and regeneration after spinal cord injury. This was published the 6th of January, 2022. And this talks about electrical stimulation is used to elicit muscle contraction and can be utilized for neurorehabilitation following spinal cord injury when paired with voluntary motor training. This technology is now an important therapeutic intervention that results in improvement in motor function in patients with spinal cord injuries. The purpose of this review is to summarize the various forms of electrical stimulation technology that exist and their applications. Furthermore, this paper addresses the potential future of this technology. Globally, approximately 250,000 to 500,000 new spinal cord injury cases occur every year. Blunt force trauma is primarily responsible for spinal cord injury, with motor vehicle crashes serving as the leading cause of injury, about 38.2% of the time, followed by falls, about 32.3% of the time. Medical expenses in the US, about $3 billion are spent annually on managing spinal cord injury, and individual costs can range from $380,000 to $1.16 million in the first year of spinal cord injury, and between $46,000 and $202,000 for each subsequent year after you have your spinal cord injury. So, after spinal cord injury, you're gonna have to get some type of insurance because, as you see, this is not a cheap injury to have. Mainly due to all the rehab that you're gonna need afterwards, all the medical devices and assisted devices, nursing care that you're gonna need after. You may need to get assisted vehicles. You may need to get your house completely renovated. The list goes on and on. So that's something that electrical stimulation hopefully can help you with, and improving those costs, right? Subspinal cord injury is a discontinuity syndrome that disrupts efferent and afferent pathways, including the descending motor fibers from the motor cortex to the spinal motor neurons, and the ascending somatosensory fibers from the peripheral nervous system throughout the spinal cord and to the brain. In other regions of the body, conduction blockage is resolved with regrowth, regeneration, and sometimes functional reconnectivity of axons to the end organ, resulting in functional recovery. However, the central nervous system has impaired ability to restore neural circuits across a lesion. Accordingly, scientific innovations have been created to bypass the area of injury and reconnect end organ function. The use of electrical stimulation after spinal cord injuries has been utilized for over half a century. One of the earliest uses of electrical stimulation in the 1960s utilized electrical current to stimulate the peroneal nerve to initiate muscle function and to correct foot drop in the setting of stroke-related hemiplegia. Since then, various types of electrical stimulation have been developed and employed to conserve the function of the aforementioned physiological systems. So complete spinal cord injury prevents any signals descending below the level of injury due to incomplete circuitry. Even in completely injured patients, some circuits are spared, although these circuits are often not sufficient to establish an adequate level of excitability to stimulate motor neurons causal to injury. Electrical stimulation is believed to work by inducing neuroplastic changes at synapses within the spinal cord. Neuroplasticity is the process in which axons and synapses reorganize and adapt to their cellular environment. After spinal cord injury, axon growth can include collateral sprouting of spared and injured axons, synaptic remodeling, and axon regeneration, albeit to a lesser extent than that which occurs outside the central nervous system. Axonal sprouting and synaptic remodeling result in circuit reorganization, while axonal regeneration involves the regrowth of transected axons. Electrical stimulation induces neuroplasticity by increasing the baseline level of spinal excitability, such that low levels of input results in voluntary motor function. It has been hypothesized that the combination of electrical stimulation with voluntary motor commands is necessary to induce neuroplastic changes. When descending signals from the brain reach the corticospinal anterior horn synapse at the same time as antidromic signals traveling up the peripherally stimulated nerve by electrical stimulation, the synapse is strengthened and increases the probability of sufficient firing in a Hebbian type learning effect. Scroll down here, which postulates that an increase in synaptic efficiency arises from repeated stimulation. This synaptic plasticity likely involves descending motor axons, proprioceptive efferents, motor neurons, and interneurons. By using electrical stimulation paired with voluntary motor training, the elicited neuroplasticity results in improvements in motor function. So as it talks about here, using electrical stimulation in combination with voluntary motor training is the best way to improve and promote neuroplasticity and healing in the spinal cord. Transcutaneous electrical stimulation, or TENS, is a surface applied neuromodulation system that has been utilized in the treatment of various types of chronic pain, including non-invasive neuropathic pain relief through stimulation of sensory A beta fibers and blocking of pain signals transmitted via A delta and C nociceptive fibers. TENS is also used in the management of spasticity through a mechanism of neuroplasticity or modulation of inhibitory circuits. TENS has been shown to enhance vibratory inhibition of the H reflex, the electrical equivalent of the monosynaptic stretch reflex, which has been attributed to presynaptic inhabilitation. TENS treatment for spasticity enhances presynaptic inhibition, which is intrinsically suppressed in spinal cord injury patients. Furthermore, TENS resembling sensory feedback has been shown to induce short-term neuroplasticity by increasing the strength of reciprocal IA inhibition between ankle flexor and extensor muscles. So TENS unit is very beneficial for you if you have spasticity, which if you have a spinal cord injury, you know too well. Living with a paralyzed limbs and how spasticity pretty much can take over your body pretty much. So this one talks about this article talks about muscular electrical stimulation, or NMES, which is electricity applied across the surface of the skin and involves direct stimulation of targeted nerves to contract paralyzed muscles and increase muscle strength. NMES is thought to improve spasticity via disynaptic reciprocal inhibition, in which the activation of one muscle produces an inhibition of the opposing muscle group. NMES is used to reverse muscle mass loss and improve functional movement similar to traditional muscle exercise. Furthermore, NMES is used in conjunction with repetitive muscle therapy to facilitate motor relearning. For example, NMES is combined with standard rehabilitation, has been shown to increase recovery of wrist extension over standard care in hemiplegic patients. These therapeutic applications may lead to an effect that enhances but does not directly provide function. When NMES is used to directly accomplish functional tasks, it is called functional electrical stimulation, or FES. So FES is a subtype of NMES that involves applying electrical stimuli to paralyze nerves or muscles to induce muscular contraction in order to complete a functional task. Conventional FES has been used in neurorehabilitation for tasks such as rowing or cycling. FES is neurorehabilitation is thought to support the rewiring and regeneration of damaged synaptic connections, or neuroplasticity. Stimuli. FES uses surface. Okay, so we just talked about FES and how that works. So in conclusion, electrical stimulation can be used in various forms to improve the well-being and functionality of patients with spinal cord injury. The scope of electrical stimulation continues to grow as more advanced technologies and interventions are developed and studied. The neuroplasticity induced by electrical stimulation portends a promising future for developing better therapeutic interventions that can lessen the functional disability and enhance the quality of life of patients with spinal cord injury. The prevalence of electrical stimulation will likely increase in the future, with neuroprosthetic devices playing an important role in rehabilitation. So, as we know, all the brain-computer interfaces and things like that, technology, neuroprosthetic devices coming out. So that provides some hope for anyone with spinal cord injury. If you're watching this and you have a spinal cord injury, that should definitely provide some hope for you and provide you some pointers on other interventions you can use to rehab and what you should be doing in order to get more neuroplasticity regained in your spinal cord and overall well-being and health. We also talked about grounding and how that can benefit you. So that's another way you can promote healing and well-being. So pretty much, guys, thank you for tuning in today for another episode of the StormCast, the number one StormCast with your host, Stormy. Hope you have a great day wherever you're watching this, a blessed day. Make sure to follow the Instagram, DM me topics, and if you want to possibly be a guest on an upcoming episode, let me know in my DMs. Down in the description, you'll find my second channel as well as my the rest of my social media, the Facebook group, the Snapchat, the TikTok, Twitter, and if you want to support, you can also hit the Patreon link or the CashApp. That is another way to support the show and to let me know that you enjoy what I'm doing. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you, chat, everyone that tuned in for this episode and watched the whole way through. Leave a like and subscribe. Join the Storm Squad. I love you so much. And stay notified by hitting that subscribe button and joining the Storm Squad, like I just said, and staying updated. Comment down below what your favorite part of the episode was and how you're doing and how your day is. And let me know what topics you want me to touch on in the next episode. I love you guys and stay blessed. Peace.